All right, we are back for part two, where we have finally cleaned up all of the cartoons that I didn't see. And now we're left with the ones that I have seen. Some of them I've seen more than others. I'll try to give a high level on all of them, but some of the better ones are the ones that I like. I'll give a little more context on. Try not to let it run too long. In terms of like rankings, it's based on a lot of things. One's just how good the show is from like a storytelling standpoint, how good the characters are, the protagonists, the antagonists, heroes and villains, the animation, and it doesn't always mean it has to be like great animation. It kind of fits the show. Is there? And did it? I guess kind of did it end in a decent way. Maybe, but that one's a little difficult because some of these I didn't even really get to see the end of, or I didn't get to see all the episodes of. Like I mentioned in the last video, some of the shows in the '80s are kind of tough to find, or if you missed them back then. You got up on Saturday, you started to watch, and you would just watch. So you'd like have a show you watch. So for example, I'd watch Transformers, and right after it would be GI Joe, and so you just watch GI Joe, and then maybe after GI Joe they had Thundercats, so you watch Thundercats. Well, sometimes within there's a show you don't really care to watch, but you just keep watching because that's what you did on Saturdays. There weren't phones or things to do otherwise other than go out and play, but you really didn't do that Saturday mornings. And we didn't really record as much. They weren't easy to kind of tape, or your parents wouldn't necessarily do it all the time. So uh, could miss them. For example, Transformers, one of my favorite shows, is a spoiler. Uh, I probably saw half the episodes when I was a kid. Now, I did watch them when I got older, but at first you're like, oh no, I don't know who these characters are, where they came from. So, all right, we'll get going. I will try to put them in order with all the tier videos. I try to move them. I'll probably have to go back and move some. I may not worry too much about it in like the middle or low categories, but the top ones I'll try to do. And it'll be tricky because comparing comedies versus like uh, you know action shows or whatever can be tough. So we'll see. All right, old Spider-Man. This is like the 1960 Spider-Man. I actually tried to watch this not all that long ago, and I understand it's old. I just could not get into it though. I would have it in the just couldn't get into it. It wasn't bad for the time. Spider-Man's an interesting character in cartoons, but I just didn't get into this one. Two Stupid Dogs, similarly, was kind of there. I'd probably rather watch Spider Man. Two Stupid Dogs was on Cartoon Network. Again, on with like a short cartoon, like 15 minutes, 10 minutes or something, with some other ones. I can't remember what they called that block of shows, but it wasn't terrible. I thought the big dog was kind of funny. He just like slow, and the other one had a lot of like running around and real fast paced stuff, so they kind of counterbalanced. But didn't really watch a ton of it. So new Ducktales, I just have seen a little bit of this because my niece and nephew or somebody had it on, and I'm like, oh, it's Ducktales again. Not my favorite version of it. It was watchable. It was okay, but not great. Okay, Ducktales the original. For now, I'm going to put it in the awesome, really get great category. I'm trying to be very thoughtful about what I call a supreme show. Some of these may get elevated or demoted as I compare them. But DuckTales was really great. Watched all the time. Awesome theme song. Scrooge was great. They had Launchpad McQuack. Um, Obviously Huey, Dewey, and Louie. Some good villains. I don't. One of the issues is I don't remember a ton of the cartoons like episodes. I don't know specifically what um, some of the themes were, things that they were trying to drive to throughout the whole show. A Pup Named Scooby Doo. Great theme song. Remember, this is one of those shows that just happened to be on after another show, I think, and I watched it a little bit. I put it in barely not awesome. I enjoyed it. I like sometimes those shows where they take the main characters and they make them kids and just have those cool little things. There's parts of it that I remember, like they had this character called Red Herring, which is when you're on a case or something, it's like a fake lead that takes you in the wrong direction. There was a kid on the show named Red Herring, so I thought that was a funny little thing. The Adventures of the Gummy Bears. Gummy Bears theme song is awesome. Might actually do a tier list at some point on those, but the show itself was okay. It wasn't my favorite. I'd probably put it in the cool enough watchable. I don't remember a ton of it. I don't remember like the main antagonist, the main villain, um, or what they were trying to do. So I can't really promote it. All Grown Up, I miss putting down in the I never heard about, so I'll throw it down there. Alvin and the Chipmunks. Uh, Very memorable show. I'd probably have it like just above Pub Named Scooby Doo. It could get into the really great. I don't remember a ton of the episodes, but I do remember Alvin, Simon, Theodore. Dave, I think, was the main guy, but can't remember the villains too much. Obviously, remember the theme. Theme's very, very popular. American Dad. Most of how I caught this, it was on the back end, like of them, promoting a show by putting it on after Family Guy. So I caught a little bit of that. It's got some funny characters. The main character, Stan, is funny. There's some decent characters in there, but it's not like my favorite. So I would put it as just kind of enjoyable. I could sit there and watch some episodes and be fine with it, but it's not like my favorite. Animaniacs. So Animaniacs had a ton to it. It had a great theme song. It was obviously the Wacko, Yakko, and Dot, I think, were the main ones on the screen. But they had Pinky and the Brain. They had Buttons and Mindy. They had Chicken Boo, the Good Pigeons, or whatever they were called. A lot of awesome adult-ish humor baked in there that you don't really pick up unless you kind of know what they're talking about. But that is one of my favorites. They also had educational stuff where they taught the countries or sang the countries, sang the states. And they had the Wheel of Morality where they'd spin a wheel at the end. And I think finally it's like one of the options was always win a free spin. And like one week they won the free spin. I do remember that. So yeah, that's one of my favorites. All right, Aqua Teen Hunger Force. Never watched enough of this. This is a show some of my friends swear by. It is hilarious. Like the times that I've watched it, I just haven't watched enough of it to really be into it. So I'll put it in the really great category because it is funny. I mean, the times I've watched is funny. Arabian Nights. I remember more about these characters being in like Laugh Olympics, I think, like a Hanna-Barbera cartoon, than the show. I never really got into the show. I would probably put it kind of around like the Spider-Man thing. Now, I may go back, if I went and watched it, I might think, oh, no, it was actually better than I remember. But I'd have it down there. Archer. Archer is one of my favorites. I didn't think it would be. I didn't actually watch it all that long ago. But the character is incredible. The guy who voices it's great. And I can't ever remember his name, some Benjamin, I think. But a ton of great humor, ton of great characters. The plot lines that last like through seasons are funny. It's a good show throughout. I didn't think there was really a dip in it. I'm sure there were some that were better than others, but it was just okay. But most of them were great. Arthur, never got into Arthur. Arthur's probably the bottom. I don't know if I want to say it's bad because it is just a kids show, little kids show, and I know it was popular, and there were always like McDonald's toys and stuff of Arthur. If it was on, it wasn't like I was like, oh my gosh, I can't have this on. It was just like, who cares? So that was that one. Adam Ant, kind of the same thing, a little forgettable to me. I'd have it above these though. Like I remember the character, and I saw it more than Spider-Man, but it was just kind of Avengers Assemble, lower on the watchable scale. That was kind of forgettable to me. It wasn't nearly as good as Earth's Mightiest Heroes. And Earth's Mightiest Heroes is probably like around here in the really great. I mean, it's a great show, and it might get promoted to one of my favorites. I'm having to hold myself back. So I'm sitting there going like, did I really like it more than DuckTales? And the answer might be yes. So we'll figure that out. Baby Looney Tunes. Don't remember this a ton. I do find Looney Tunes enjoyable, so I watch them. But I don't think this was my favorite. I have to see more of like the characters. I remember more of like the baby, I think Baby Elmer Fudd maybe than maybe Yosemite Sam, but don't know. Back to the Future. Don't remember a ton of this. I remember enough to like place it in my head. I don't know that it was all that good, but maybe it was great and I just forgot. I have to watch it again. I would have it as watchable. I'd probably have it below Gummy Bears. It's kind of like in that, I'd watch it and it'd be on, but I don't remember a ton of it. Oh, Batman Beyond. Batman Beyond is kind of up here with Avengers, Earth's Mightiest Heroes. Again, these may move. That show's great. I remember when it first came out, and I was like, "Oh, this is going to be dumb. Who wants a Bruce Wayne old and some young kid?" But the villains, the artistic design, the story is great. Like, and this show is great throughout. And I should have said that about Earth's Mightiest Heroes. That show felt great throughout as well. Batman the Brave and the Bold. I watched this not all that long ago, and I found that to be very enjoyable. And honestly, almost really great. I didn't expect this one to be either. It's more of a comedic take on like the 50s version or whatever of Batman. Aquaman is great in the show. They have a lot of cool characters, and each episode's like its own little comic book. So they did a really good job making it something different than just like trying to recreate Batman the animated series. Speaking of which, Batman the Animated Series is one of my favorites. Just an amazing show. Like the artistic direction when it first came out was like super dark, super serious, very good again all the way through. The Joker, Mark Hamill, and this was great. All the villains were great. So definitely one of my favorite shows. All right, Beast Wars. Beast Wars was not my favorite, but I enjoyed it. I'd probably have it on the lower end. And part of the reason I say this is so it's hard to imagine today Transformers not being everywhere, but back then it wasn't. So in the 80s, when I had the original Transformers, and I was very young, so I was actually watching some reruns of it probably, that was the only show of Transformers. And then there was nothing for a very long time. They even stopped making the toys. So for my like later childhood, it was like they had taken away Transformers, and Beast Wars was the first thing to come back. Now it was so different because it was like 3D animation, and they were animals and like prehistoric. So at first I was like, what is this? This is crazy. But they did over time tie it into the original series and tie it into the timelines of how things were going. And you did get used to the characters. And I did like the show once it got to that point. So it wasn't my favorite, but I did enjoy it after some time. All right, Beavis and Butthead is a great show. Now, it wasn't my favorite show. I was probably not like totally understanding all the humor in it and everything whenever it first came on at my age. But you appreciate it more when you watch it now. And then, but it had this like iconic thing. And again, it's hard to say unless you were back then, which is when it came on, that was the only time it was on, right? You don't go stream a lot of episodes all the time. You just watch it that once a week or whenever it was on. And they would have Beavis and Butthead sitting there watching music videos when music videos were a real thing. They aren't that real anymore. Back then, that was like the main way you're going to get a song popular. And if they were on Beavis and Butthead, they had their AC/DC and Metallica shirt. That's when you saw that music video a lot of times for me. And then, I'd actually see it on MTV. So cool show. Really great show. Beetlejuice. I will have Beetlejuice in the kind of barely not awesome category. I think if I watched it a little bit more, it might be in the really great category. I remember the opening. I remember the shrunken head guy. I remember this version of Beetlejuice as probably the main version in my head over the movie. But I don't remember enough of the episodes, like of what they were doing. I remember the girl. And it just, that if I could remember, I would probably move it up a level. Berenstain Bears, again, I'm mixing that up with like VHS tapes, I'm sure, but I enjoyed it. It was watchable for me. I'd probably watch it more than Gummy Bears. I always liked the Mama Bear, Papa Bear, Brother Bear, Sister Bear, whatever they were called. And they had more morality lessons baked in that, were good. And I read the books as a kid, so they were adapting a lot of the books that I read. Blaze, kids show, watched it, with young kids, and I liked it. It was entertaining. I mean, it's watchable. There's nothing I'm really going to put uh, above like in a super enjoyable. But for what it was good. I remember Crusher, the antagonist, and Blaze, and them changing tires and all this other stuff. It was fun. Blues Clues. I didn't watch a ton of Blues Clues. Saw it enough to kind of remember the guy and him coming in and Blue doing the thing. I don't remember much about the episodes or how they went. Again, it's kind of watchable to me. I'd probably watch Blaze over it. A little more exciting to me, but Blues Clues was cool enough. Bobby's World. So Bobby's World was really great. Bobby's World was really great. They had Uncle Ted. I remember Uncle Ted. Howie Mandel was the main guy. He had his Bobby had his spider. But the cool thing about the show was his imagination. It was kind of a show about him using his imagination, plus his family dynamic and watching his parents interact and like the uncle and everything. Just a really good show. I don't even remember what this kind of came on around the other shows on with it. But it was one that I would sit and watch just for it. Some of these others maybe not so much. Bob's Burgers is really great. Uh, Watched that more recently. It's a newer show, but this is the same voice actor that did Archer. It's more of a show about a middle-aged guy that I can identify with now a little bit, where he's got his family, he's got to deal with his kids. They do a great job of like showing the love but annoyance within the family and their personalities and craziness. And the episodes are entertaining, and like the themes within the seasons and stuff are just kind of fun to watch. So it's a good show, really great show. Bonkers, I don't remember a ton about. Uh, I don't think I liked it. I'll throw that in the kind of bad. Like I thought I'd like it or was kind of tailored toward maybe my age, but I just never got into it. Could 100% watch this and be like, oh, no, 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 it was way better than I thought. But I just don't reference it as being good in my head. Captain Planet. Uh, hmm, Captain Planet's tough for me. I think I'm going to have it in the think I'm gonna have it at like kind of the top for now of the enjoyable category. So it's a little cheesy, but it was a really cool show as a kid. So they each had rings. They put the rings together. They formed Captain Planet. It's always one of those things like, why don't we just always have Captain Planet? Can we not just like keep him ready right away and not have to use our individual powers to try first? Voltron kind of thing, Power Rangers kind of thing. Um, but I think the thing that sets this apart, and I might throw it in the really great category now that I think about it, the villains were great. Obviously, pollution was a big theme in the show and Captain Planet, and they all were pollution villains. So, it was a greedy corporate guy or like a radioactive guy, sludge guy, those types of things. So I enjoyed it. It's a really great show. Captain Caveman. I remember Captain Caveman more, I think, from the Flintstones. I don't remember his individual show. I would say it's cool enough and watchable. He's a fun character. I'll throw him kind of in the middle there. Captain Caveman, and then he'd have his little club and he'd fly. But beyond that, I don't remember a ton of the show. Oh, Care Bears. Care Bears is a tough one. I remember the Care Bears movie more than I remember the cartoon. I remember some of the Care Bears. There was like Sunshine Bear and Grumpy Bear. Um, I know there are kids, Bella, you're out there, and you love Care Bears. You probably need to get me to watch it. Uh, as a kid, I enjoyed it and I had it as watchable. I'd probably have around. I obviously have this thing for bears being watchable, but not great because we have Care Bears, Berenstain Bears, and Gummy Bears right there. Maybe we'll split them apart. But I did like their Care Bear stare. They'd like stick their bellies out and do the Care Bear stare, but I don't remember a ton about like the story of the show. Castlevania. Castlevania was a really great show. Newer first season I think was awesome. I don't remember how many seasons there are. The last season I thought wasn't quite as good. Um, could be misremembering that a bit, but it was a really great show, like closer to being one of my favorites. If I watched it again, I might think it's a favorite, but it's really well done. And I wasn't even a Castlevania fan. Like, I didn't play the video games as a kid much. Always thought they were too hard. I kind of gave up. Wouldn't rent them because I knew I'd fail. So um, it was great. The show was great though. Cat Dog, kind of bad. Don't remember that show. What I do remember, I'd turn it off because I'm like, what is this? Uh, who knows? Challenge of the GoBots. So this was the competitor to Transformers. The show was not good. I tried. I want it to be good. I actually like some of the characters. I had toys of GoBots. There was Leader One and Psykill. Um, I think were the main hero and villain. Uh, cool enough. Not super enjoyable though. So it's kind of in this section here of just a decent. The animation wasn't great. The story wasn't great. It was just a huge quality dip from like a Transformers. Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers was really great. Similar to DuckTales, and like I said, we'll probably move some of these around. Uh, I remember the characters. I remember the villains. Fun show. Great theme song. Seemed good throughout. Probably don't remember how it really ends. A lot of these, just kind of stop after a season and don't really have closure. That might have been one of them, but it was really good. It was really great, I should say. Clone Wars. So the first one is like a mini series, I think, or a few episodes. It seems like it was the same animation guy that does like Samurai Jack, maybe Dexter's Laboratory and stuff. And I thought it was cool. Like when it first came out, I was like, whoa, that's kind of neat because the movies aren't great and that's better than the things I've seen in the movies. So I had that as pretty enjoyable. Then Clone Wars came out and I was super skeptical because they made it look more 3D-ish kind of thing. But this is the best version of prequel Star Wars that there is. This was where they finally made Anakin a great character. Um, Obi-Wan still good. And they had Ahsoka, who was a great character. A lot of awesome kind of back and forth between the Jedi, the Padawan, and all that. So this was one of the better versions of Star Wars, and I would say it's a great show. Courage the Cowardly Dog, I also have as a really great show. This was on Cartoon Network, was on at night, and creepy show. Had some creepy animation to it. He's a scaredy cat dog protecting his owners. His male owner hates him, female owner loves him, but they're always getting into crazy stuff, and it's weird. I mean, the sound in it is weird and cool. The animation's cool, like I said. So yeah, that one's a really great show. Cow and Chicken. Cow and Chicken I had is kind of bad. I did not enjoy Cow and Chicken. I'd probably have it above Cat Dog, but it was on that Cartoon Network block where Two Stupid Dogs was, I think. Um, not much to it. Curious George kids show. That's kind of dull. Kind of dull. Kind of Arthurish to me. Probably not bad. Daria, same thing. Just it's more of an adult show, but it was boring. I wouldn't say it's bad. Like if I watched it with the right context, it's probably a better show. But I just never got into it. Darkwing Duck. Darkwing Duck was somewhat similar to DuckTales. So I don't get too top heavy. I'm going to put it enjoyable for now. I think I might move it up, but remember some of the villains. Remember, the cool theme song is crime fighting. He's a superhero. Pretty fun show. I'll go ahead and put it in really great for now. I did enjoy that a lot and tried to watch it when it was on. Dastardly and Muttley, I'd have as enjoyable. I really like their relationship. I like Dastardly, his like evil. He's the whole evil scheme that never works kind of guy. And then Mudley was the little snickering dog that always made fun of Dastardly when he messed up. But they were always good, not just on their own show, but they were on I think they were on Wacky Races and some other stuff where they were great characters. Dexter's Lab. Dexter's Lab I'd have is a really great show. Uh, Hard to explain. It's like when it first came out, it was different. It was just the animation was different. Uh, he's a great character, like little genius, kind of guy. His sister just destroys everything he does, and he has like parents who are completely oblivious to it. It was a really great show, and I enjoyed that one a lot. Dora the Explorer, not my genre of show, kids show, but I will say it's cool enough and watchable. It's kind of in the Blaze section, Blues Clues, maybe a little bit above Blues Clues. I like the what's his name, Swiper, that comes and steals stuff all the time. Maybe you shouldn't like that character, but it's a good educational show, fun for kids. Doug, Doug was enjoyable. I like Doug. Um, Show could be a little boring, if you didn't take in the right context, but that was just what it was. It was just to be him growing up, and he had his dog and his girlfriend, I think Patty Mayonnaise, was that her name? Like I said, didn't get to see this one a ton, so I didn't get to see the full arc of things. It was on ABC afterward. I didn't get to see a ton of that either, but I remember it. Duckman. I couldn't get into it. Probably similar to Daria, and I'm sure somebody would say, "Dude, that's like the best show ever." And if I gave it another chance, maybe it would click with me now. The time I watched it, it was not what I was looking to watch. Dumb and Dumber, it's kind of the same thing. Like, I like the movie, but the show was kind of like, okay, it can't be as like adult humor as the show, so it's not the same thing. Earthworm Jim was watchable. I don't think it was like great. I like the video games a lot. It's probably kind of around the Bears area. Ed, Ed, and Eddie. This was also in that cow and chicken block. Uh, it wasn't my favorite. I wouldn't watch it. Now, some people at my age probably loved it. I'd probably have it like to the top of it, of dull, but who knows. Family Guy I'd have is one of my favorites. It does vary in quality sometimes. Like some episodes are funnier than others. They do rely a lot on and that's part of the show. But it's you're just calling out the pop culture jokes or like referencing shows and stuff. But since I watched a lot of shows and grew up with them, I find a lot of it funny. They're very memeable type things. And it is one that I haven't watched most of the recent stuff, so there is a chance like I could move it to really great. But there are some just very funny takes and things that put it up to something that makes me laugh a lot. All right, Fantastic Four. We have the 90s version, which I would say was enjoyable. And then we have the old version, which I would say was watchable. It was okay. I wouldn't go actively like try to hunt it out. The 90s one was a block with like Iron Man and Hulk, all of them somewhat similar, but I enjoyed it. Fat Albert, I'd have as watchable. Wasn't like didn't get to see it a lot, but I remember it. It was pretty funny, and it was kind of morality, lessons and stuff too at times. So it was watchable. Futurama, I didn't super get into Futurama, but it was enjoyable. It's a funny show if I invested time in it and actually watched it. The characters were funny. Simpsons-ish, I think. Same guy. But it was good. Garfield and Friends. Great theme song, like Garfield, like Odie, like John. They also had the barnyard animals. I can't remember what that part of the show was called, but really liked that show. And I will say that was probably in my really great category because I did like to watch it and tried to watch it. Gargoyles. This is probably one of my biggest misses where I didn't watch it much, even when it was on, and I can't remember what it came. I feel like it might have been later, but I was for some reason thinking it was like after Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles at some point, maybe reruns of Turtles. But Gargoyles, I didn't watch enough of to really enjoy it. I would put it as watchable, but I'm sure if somebody said, "Dude, you got to go watch Gargoyles," the animation was great. The characters looked cool and everything. I couldn't tell you what the characters' names are or anything. And that's probably just me not seeing it. G.I. Joe. G.I. Joe is really great. Watched it all not all that long ago. Great characters, fun characters. The interesting thing to me is I didn't watch this a ton as a kid. Um, Not like I just missed it. I didn't, not like I watched it and tried to see every episode. I was like, why? I tried to do that with Transformers. Why didn't I do it with G.I. Joe's like on around the same time? And I don't know. But the interesting thing when I watched it recently is a lot of the characters who I thought would be my favorites or were my favorites were not. And I was like, oh gosh, I thought I liked Duke, but I actually like Flint. Like, I don't even remember Flint from when I was a kid. Or Lady J's great. And I just thought I liked Scarlet, those kind of things. Cobra Commander is awesome. Uh, Zartan is awesome. So there's good villains, good heroes. It could get close to being in the favorites category because it is fun. There are some episodes and things that might not be as great as others, but it was pretty good throughout. Could have used some more of the ninjas. I noticed that. I thought they were in it a lot. They weren't in it a ton. Goof Troop. Goof Troop's a little tricky because I don't know the difference between Goof Troop and the Goofy movie. Or I can't remember if this was like a spinoff of the movie and then like what parts in my head are from the movie versus the show. I'd have it as enjoyable. I like their relationship. I like Goofy and is it Max? Is this kid? I could be getting that wrong, but the dynamic they have and just the show with what's the Pete? Is Pete the other guy? The villain. Um, I'll always like that dynamic. The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy. I didn't see a ton of, so it's like I probably shouldn't even rate it that much. I probably have it as the top of dull. I think he's kind of funny, the Grim Reaper, and then the way the kids interact. I think the kid kind of acts like dumb and crazy, and the little girl's kind of just mean spirited. It's probably fine. I just never watched a ton of it. All right, He Man and the Masters of the Universe. Another tricky one. Kind of like G.I. Joe, I didn't see it as much as a kid as I thought. Uh, Remember the characters. Remember He Man, obviously. Remember Skeletor, who's one of the best villains of all time. But I don't remember a ton of the show. And I haven't gone back and rewatched it. And so it's taking me away from putting it too high. Um, but it is a great show. So I probably have it kind of by G.I. Joe. The newer one I haven't seen a ton of. It was cool enough. It's cool to see the characters again. I don't know that this is the same show. I'm sorry, I saw the thumbs up comes up. I don't know why it does that, but the newer one, the animation looked different than that. The one I watched was pretty good. Cool enough. Hey Arnold was a show I never understood. Kind of, I don't know if it was on Nickelodeon or whatever when it came on. I was just like, I don't care. So I ignored that one a little bit. The Incredible Hulk, similar to that Fantastic Four show. I'll kind of lump it in there. They were enjoyable. It was cool to see the characters. Similar to Transformers, there was a time when like Marvel wasn't all up in your face all the time, and there was like a period where you were just like anything that is Marvel is good or anything that's Transformers is good. And so, like I remember when the first Transformers live movie came out, I'm like, oh my gosh, they're actually making it. Or the first X-Men movie, it's like I can't believe they're finally making a real uh, superhero movie. With the characters I grew up with and the cartoons that I did. But in this period, there wasn't even a lot of cartoons before that that were very good. And then you had X-Men come out and some other things that were great. So Spider-Man and stuff. So it became really good after that. I Am Weasel, another kind of bad one to me. I liked him more than Cow and Chicken, I think. But again, like in that Cartoon Network thing where I just didn't get it too much. Inspector Gadget. Inspector Gadget, I will say, is in the enjoyable. Great character, great theme song. Penny was great. She always had to save him. The Claw was the villain. Uh, Good show. Like always enjoyed it. So I don't want it to sound like these enjoyable shows aren't great. They are in their own way. But it's probably just kind of around there. It could move. That's one that I really did like. Iron Man, similar to the Fantastic Four Hulk things, and we might move those around. Like if I was going to say which one was my favorite, I'd probably say Iron Man, then Hulk, then Fantastic Four. I could be misremembering, but Mandarin was kind of in that one. Maybe Doctor Doom I liked a little bit more, so it's probably Fantastic Four. More than like the leader. Jabberjaw was annoying. He was just annoying, but he was in like some of the other Hanna-Barbera stuff, which is fine. But I just the show itself, I was like, yeah, it's kind of bad. Jackie Chan Adventures, I don't remember a ton about. It was okay. Just kind of in the like, meh, it's a show. Jim, this was not really geared to me, but it was on after shows that I watched. I think it might have been on after like Thundercats and Silverhawks or something like that. I don't remember a ton of the show. I know she was like a rock star and she turned into a superhero kind of thing. Don't remember who the villains were, if it was another band or what. So it was a girls show with trying to get girls to buy toys. So I didn't watch it a ton. I probably would have it around couldn't get into it. Johnny Quest, that was watchable. It's not my favorite. I know it's an iconic show, but I don't remember a ton about it. I remember, they go on quests, obviously, but don't remember the villains. Don't remember too much about it. Johnny Bravo, I think, was also in this block, Cow and Chicken and stuff. I didn't dislike it as much maybe as the others, but I'd have it in the like couldn't get into. I would just have it on. He's like a macho guy, just oblivious to himself. It's okay. Josie and the Pussycats, a little bit like Jim, where it's more geared toward girls. I remember they were in a band. I don't remember much about the rest of the show. I did see it. Justice League. Justice League was a great show. Similar to these Avengers, Batman Beyond, we'll figure out. Some of these might move around again, but definitely one of my favorites. King of the Hill was a really great show. It's honestly not like a group of characters that I would typically be like, oh, that's a show I need to watch, but they did a great job. I think it was the guy who did Beavis and Butthead, just Mike Judge. Hank Hill's a great character. Bobby is great. Peggy, Luann. You remember the characters. Boomhauer, Bill. What was the other one? There was, oh man, I can't remember the other one. He had the hat. Dale. And just great dynamic and fun show. My family still references propane and propane accessories all the time. We didn't even see the show that much. Legend of Zelda. This was a disappointment because I love Zelda. It's a great franchise, great characters. It's a little too like cheesy and corny. It's not bad. Wasn't my favorite. It was kind of watchable for me. I just wished it was better. Looney Tunes. Looney Tunes, one of my favorites. Too many classic characters, too many classic skits, things that have obviously stood the test of time with Space Jam and all the other stuff. But to go back, and there was a lady who was cutting my hair the other week, and I don't know why she referenced it, but there was it's like the big red guy. I can't remember his name. There was an episode where they were like, Bugs was cutting his hair or doing something. She referenced that, and then she's like, God, do you remember how violent those were? Says, yeah, this is crazy. You can't get away with a lot of those things now. But similar to Animaniacs, too many great characters. Foghorn Leghorn, Porky Pig, Wile E. Coyote, and the Roadrunner. Yosemite Sam's one of my favorites. The Vulture, whatever his name is great. So Looney Tunes was awesome. Love, Death, and Robots. It's a bit different because it's a very adult show. It's short stories. It's like I'm reading a book of short stories. Some of the stories are great. The animation's great. And others are like, yeah, it's not as good. I'd have it in the barely not awesome category because there were some very memorable parts of it. And then there's others where I was like, it's okay. Magic School Bus. That was a fun show. It was a fun show. I'd have it as enjoyable. Kind of like Inspector Gadget-ish. We'll move those around, but I remember what was her name, Miss Frizzle. Could be wrong. And and then going on the adventures. I always like shows that go on adventures and, you know, imagination and things like that, especially for younger kids. So that was a fun one. Mickey Mouse Clubhouse also, it's in that group. I mean, if you've seen it, you know the hot dog song, you know the characters. It makes you feel good. It's just like, oh, you know, we're solving stuff, and this is positive, and this feels good. They have fun little Halloween specials and other things, and it's Mickey Mouse, and we all love Mickey Mouse and Goofy and all them, Minnie and Donald, etc. So yeah, that's a good show. Mr. Magoo, I don't remember a ton about. I'd have it as watchable. Just remember him stumbling and bumbling because he can't see and always magically getting to where he needs to go. But I don't remember a ton of the plot. My Little Pony, have it in kind of the gem category. Like I said, I don't, in the prior video, I think, I only remember the theme. I don't remember too much about the show at all. The Ren and Stimpy show, similar to like Beavis and Butthead, where it is a really great show, just ahead of its time or genius or whatever you want to call it, where like it doesn't even make sense a lot of times, but you realize you're just not smart enough to get it until you get it. And I wasn't like I didn't watch this a ton as a kid. I can't remember if this was on, like what this was on. Was it on MTV or was it on late night Nickelodeon maybe? I can't remember. But anyway, I haven't seen all of it by any means, which would maybe make it better. Freakazoid. I never got into Freakazoid. Never got into it. Just one of those shows that's like, it was on a lot. It was on Cartoon Network. It was a superhero. I should like it. It's funny. Never got into it. Pinky and the Brain. I do remember this being a separate show from Animaniacs, so I kept it in. It's really great. It kind of continues the show, but unto themselves, they're great. They try to take over the world every night. That's the same thing they do every night. But this also had some like very touching moments too. And I do remember like a Christmas show that was really good with this, when Brain had like given up and Pinky, you know, gave him like a little keychain of the world. I think that was pretty sweet. But it was a good show, and they'd always like dress in outfits, and people would just take them seriously for whatever reason, being mice. Clifford. Clifford reminded me of one that I already had in here, and I can't remember. Oh, it's about the Curious George level. I'd have it about like the Arthur Curious George. It was nothing I got into, but it was just a kid's show and probably fine. Popeye. Popeye is not my favorite. Popeye is not my favorite. I don't think it's bad. I do like Bluto. Olive Oil, take it, leave it. Popeye's fine. Wimpy's pretty funny. The little hamburger guy, I think. He is iconic, but the show itself, it's not my favorite. Pound Puppies was okay. I had Pound Puppies, the little stuffed animals. I had that one, actually. I think him up there. And maybe the other one too, but he was a little smaller. But yeah, the show I kind of remember. I think I remember like a movie more than a show, and not like a theater movie, but like a extended cartoon or something. That was pretty fun. But I don't remember a whole lot of like, again, the villains or what. I mean, I think they're in the Pound, but I don't. Dogcatcher, I would assume, is a villain. Powerpuff Girls. Powerpuff Girls was on Cartoon Network, and Powerpuff Girls was good. I'd have it as enjoyable. Fun villain characters in this. Another one where like the animation and everything was different in the professor and all that. It was good. You had Mojo Jojo and just the way that it was, and I didn't think I'd even like it. It's like, oh, this is a girl's show. But it was fun. I enjoyed it. Quick Draw McGraw. So you had Quick Draw McGraw. You had him with El Caban or whatever it was, and yeah, he transformed. I think put the mask on. I liked Quick Draw. I don't remember if I know him more from like this show, or if he was on like Yogi Bear or something as a side character, like those Hanna-Barbera characters. So I don't remember the show all that much. I would say it's watchable. Like I would have sat and been like, oh, okay, Quick Draw. He's funny. Star Wars Rebels. Star Wars Rebels was better than I thought. going in. I was like, oh, this is not Clone Wars. It's kiddie looking animation. Um, don't know what they're going to do with the story. Don't know who these characters are. Finally gave it a chance. It is a really good show, and it gets more serious as it goes along, and it does tie some things in. This, along with Clone Wars, really made the missteps of early like the prequels of Star Wars. It finally gave a good version of some of that. Now they butchered the rest of Star Wars since and done a bunch of bad things, but this was pretty good. And like they built characters you cared about that kind of came from Shadows of the Empire, I think, some books from the 90s, with Thrawn and some other stuff. And they did a cool job with this show as well. Made you care about the characters. There was a sense of loss and, recovery and those kind of things within it. Reboot. This show is, I think, considered to be great. I could not get into it. Probably just the animation. This was like the first show like this where I wasn't ready for it and didn't adjust to it. But for me, I just couldn't get into it. If I gave it another chance today, maybe I would. Recess. Recess was a fun show. This was on Saturday morning. One of the Saturday morning, I remember the little theme songs or whatever. Don't remember the characters. Names. I do remember like the mean recess lady, the teacher or whatever that was there. But they were, I could identify you were just out of recess for the most part doing stuff, which was kind of cool. Rick and Morty. Rick and Morty is one of my favorites. Didn't watch till more recently, but man, some of the episodes are like the smartest episodes you'll ever see, funniest episodes you'll ever see. Characters are great. Is a self-aware show where they'll break the fourth wall at times or like acknowledge their own existence, which is funny. Goes back, looks at a lot of pop culture stuff and everything similar to an Animaniacs or to South Park or Family Guy, those kind of shows. So yeah, Rick and Morty's great. There's a few episodes that aren't as great, but they mostly hit the nail on the head. RoboCop. RoboCop was cool enough. It's kind of around Zelda to me. Didn't see a ton of it, but it was like RoboCop, and you like the movie, so I'm gonna watch RoboCop. But you can't make it as adult as the movie, so again, you're dealing with a kid show. Rugrats. Rugrats is watchable for me. It's probably better than watchable in reality. I remember Tommy, I think was his name, and Angela. I don't remember the other kids' names. Again, on Nickelodeon. I didn't get to watch it much. It was only on when I was at basketball camp, so I'd see it here and there, but I wouldn't see a ton of it. All right, we are at Samurai Jack. Samurai Jack's one of my favorites. When I first started to watch it, I was like, oh, this show's interesting. Like the animation's cool. It's different. It's like funny at times. It's super serious at times. He's got a very like heavy burden that he's got to deal with. And Aku, the villain, is like funny, mean, and everything. But the artistic direction of this is really good. And then I very recently started watching it with headphones on. And the sound in this is incredible. Like you can tell how detailed they were about like using silence and using, small subtle sounds and things and throwing it all over the place. So that show is just really well done, and one of my favorites. And it's great through the end. Like the last few episodes which were way later than the original show, but the original people did it. It was a great, great ending. All right, Scooby-Doo and Scrappy-Doo was annoying, but watchable. Scrappy-Doo's just kind of annoying. As a kid, you're kind of like, oh, he's fun. But then you grow up and you're like, oh my gosh, when is he going to just calm down? Which is probably a good dichotomy between Scooby-Doo and Scrappy. You kind of, have the lazier scaredy cat and the brave, fun one, which is fine. Which I'll account for, I think, in 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo because he is in that. But Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? Is a really great show. Really great show. Was just fun to be in a spooky show, looking for these ghosts. You always knew they were going to catch and it was going to be a real person, but they did make these monsters and stuff scary. Like if you're a kid and watching it back then, it's not like scary, but it's creepy, and fun to watch. And the characters are very memorable. Obviously, they've been around forever with Scooby and Shaggy and Daphne, Velma, and Fred. Uh, Scooby's Laugh Olympics was enjoyable. I mean, it wasn't great, probably not, but it was fun to see these characters competing in the Olympics or whatever Olympics they were. I don't remember what the events were, but it was a fun show to watch. She-Ra was watchable for me, but this is one where I would need to see it again, and I would need to watch He-Man more. She-Ra, I didn't see a ton of. I remember her. I remember, was it Hordak or whatever the villain is? I remember almost nothing else about it. I think they were cousins. So I would have to watch it again. But when it was on, I would watch it. Like, it's like, okay, it's, the He-Man universe. Sheep in the City. I don't know, even remember that very much. It didn't like offend me, so I would say maybe above Jabberjaw. I would not sit and stay and watch it. I feel like it was just a sheep standing there quiet, but I don't remember what the rest of the show was about. Like a lot of stuff going on around him, maybe. Silverhawks. Silverhawks was not a great show. Um, it was very good though. I had fun watching it. Uh, it's like a cheapened Thundercats. You had these people out in space wearing metal. They all had hawks that would fly off of them. Vehicles. Monstar, I think, was the villain with some other cool like side villains. The little was his name Kid maybe, but there was like a little kid one that looked like Copper that would do he couldn't even speak. I don't think he made sounds, but he would do like space questions at the end of the episode, which I always thought was fun. It's like, because back then you didn't have Google or internet or anything where you're like, oh, I can go look up space questions. It's like, oh, this is fun. It's the biggest planet, whatever. So Silverhawks was cool, and the theme song was great. Silver Surfer. This just did not differentiate itself for me from the other shows that I had, and I can't remember exactly where I had them. I'm trying to find them. Ish, probably toward the top because I always liked Galactus. I think Thanos was in this. He was like a tortured character trying to escape the Galactus. I felt like there was more to his character than maybe some of the other ones if I rewatched. But they're all kind of in the same similar quality. Snorks was never my favorite. It was watchable. Some people probably liked it more than me, but I just kind of have it in this watchable section. Sonic, similarly, I don't remember it that much. It was probably better. I do like the characters, but I like them more from the games, I think, than I did the cartoon. So it was fine. South Park. South Park's one of my favorites, for sure. So South Park, classic characters, Cartman. I remember the first time this came on, and I was in 8th grade. I was at a house in Kiowa, South Carolina with my friends, and we knew it was coming on. I don't even think our parents knew it was coming on. So we went in one of the bedrooms, we turned on Comedy Central, and it was, Cartman getting abducted by aliens and stuff. The animation was terrible. We could not stop laughing. It was the funniest thing we'd ever seen. It was totally inappropriate compared to anything at the time. Like you take The Simpsons and multiply it by 1,000, and we were dying laughing. And then our parents figured out what it was. Like my parents didn't care. But some other ones like, you can't watch this. This is terrible, blah, blah, blah. Now it's still been on for like 20 years. I don't think I've seen it all. Like some of the more recent episodes and seasons probably aren't as good. But man, there are some classic characters, and Randy Marsh is one of the best, Stan's dad on there. So a ton of great characters there. Space Ghost Coast to Coast. Man, you want to talk about a weird show. You take an old Hanna-Barbera character that just has very little personality and turn him into a talk show host, and he would interview real people, and then he'd have Brack and Zorak it's hard to explain. It's just a weird show. And I had a CD that was Space Ghost Coast to Coast Barbecue, and they had songs that they would do. Like Brack sang a song called like "I Love Beans." Uh, I, Don't Bring in the Clowns. I think Zorak did one, and that's how the show was. It was just so bizarre, but it was very kind of cool to watch. So I'd have that in the really great category. It was just very original for the time. Spider-Man, 80 version, not Spider-Man, His Amazing Friends. I kind of had in the dull as well. I'd have it a little bit above the other one at some point. I tried to watch it and I'm just like, yeah, it's okay. I like the characters. Could be that I'm just spoiled with Spider-Man animated series from the 90s, but it was okay. Now, people in the 80s probably were like, oh, thank God we got a Spider-Man show, just like I was saying with the 90s Marvel stuff. All right, Spider-Man 90s. Spider-Man 90s is one of my favorites. Not quite spoiled by the fact I was told he never punches in the show, which is not Spider-Man in the comics, but great show, great character. Did end a little weird. Like last season was kind of weird, but it was fine. All right, Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, I would have as enjoyable. That one's a little bit better. You got Firestar, you got Iceman. They have a dynamic. It's a little bit better. SpongeBob is a really great show. It just is. It's funny. It's great characters for that age that grew up with it. It's a riot. I always liked Plankton, the guy who owned the competitor's restaurant, Mr. Krabs, and all that. But it was a fun show. Just a bizarre show, but a fun show. The Super Mario show was enjoyable. It wasn't great. You want it to be great because you're like, I love Mario and I love these characters. Um, it had some fun. I did like it. I enjoyed it. So again, this is not like these are bad whatsoever. When it was on, I'm like, oh, fun. This is Mario, and I hope I get to see Koopa, King Koopa, Bowser, and it was fun. Great theme song coming from the game and stuff. But it'll move around in here. But it was just in my enjoyable, not quite really great. Super Y Kids Show was watchable. Kind of like these, it's fun and good to understand, the why of things. Used to watch that with my niece and nephew a little bit. Super Friends. Super Friends was an enjoyable show, kind of like Spider-Man His Amazing Friends. I think it was a little bit better, and at the time had to be awesome because you're like, holy cow, I get to see the Justice League. Like, this is great. And the villains were great. You had the Legion of Doom. It's probably dated a bit now. You got the like 70s kids in there with their dog. I can't remember what their names were, but it was still cool. It's still like those old DC characters and then bring that in. Superman animated, I need to watch again a little bit. I don't remember a ton of it compared to what was in Justice League, but it's a similar character. Show was great though. I really liked it. I really enjoyed watching it, so I'm going to put that in the really great category. SWAT Cats. SWAT Cats was enjoyable. I liked that show. I think they were mechanics. I want to say they were mechanics, and then you had the newscaster lady. That was like one of them's girlfriend or the girl interest, kind of like an April O'Neil deal. The villains were good, creepy. There was like a creepy magician guy and like a metal girl and guy, I think. So yeah, it was a cool show. TaleSpin. I didn't get into TaleSpin too much. It's watchable. I mean, it's Baloo, I think, from Disney and Jungle Book and all that. Fun theme. I don't remember a ton again about the villains and stuff. I'd need to look up that a bit. Okay, Teen Titans Go and Teen Titans. Teen Titans Go, I just saw enough of to be able to say like it was watchable. It's much more funny for like a certain age of kids that like just a goofy, take on the characters. And then Teen Titans itself, I just never really got into. I was too old for it a little bit, but it's like okay, I'll try to watch it, and I just didn't care too much. 13 Ghosts of Scooby Doo would be in the enjoyable category. Kind of up around there. Scrappy isn't that, but this one was cool because they were actual ghosts. They had Vincent Price with like his crystal ball, and they were ghosts. And again, when you couldn't watch it all, you're like, I need to see every episode because I need to make sure they catch all 13 ghosts. That being said, I haven't watched it all, so I don't know if they caught them all or if they finished it. But I need to check that out. The Addams Family, I don't remember too much of. I will say it was watchable because I didn't remember it, and I enjoy the Addams Family. It's again kind of like the creepy shows where you've got a little bit of the goofiness and the comedy with the creepiness. So you have Cousin It and Uncle Fester and all that, and it was fun. Rocky and Bullwinkle is enjoyable. Always liked Rocky and Bullwinkle themselves, but they also had the kind of side characters. I know Boris and Natasha were the villains a lot of times, but you had Mr. Peabody, the dog, and the kid that would time travel. I always liked them. That was a fun show, an old show, but it was really cool with some of the things that it did. The Cleveland Show. Cleveland Show was pretty funny, actually. So it's Cleveland comes from Family Guy, and then I think he moved away or something, and they had these other kids. It was on after Family Guy, so you just again start watching it. And I'd probably have it as enjoyable. I thought it was pretty funny. I never wanted to like turn it off or not watch it. Critic in a similar way was enjoyable. That's one I'd probably need to watch again because it was too smart for me when I watched it. Grew up a little bit now, so I probably would find more humor in it, but it was still funny for the things that I saw at the time. Jetsons was really great to me. I always loved the Jetsons. Made before my time, but reruns in the 80s. And yeah, George, Jane, Elroy, and Judy, then Rosie. Yeah, Mr. Spacely. I was always a space kid, science kid that liked that stuff. So they were the ones that I preferred. I'll skip over because the Flintstones are next. They to me were enjoyable. Was on around the Jetsons, like before the Jetsons. Fred Flintstone's iconic, Barney Rubble, Wilma, Betty, Dino, Pebbles, Bam Bam. Remember all of them. I can't remember the guy who's his boss. I'll think of it. But anyway, that show was good. It just wasn't my favorite compared to the Jetsons. The Mask, I didn't get into too much. Again, just kind of a show that it was watchable. It was a more adult humor stuff. Moved to a cartoon, not great. Real Ghostbusters, I need to watch more. It's really great. I always enjoyed the episodes I did watch. I remember Slimer from that more than anything. Creepy show, some of the creepy ghosts I remember even the first episode, but really good show. Could bounce into my favorites if I watched it more, but it's really good. Secret Squirrel was fun. I'd have it as like watchable toward the top. I remember him and Morocco Mole. I don't know a whole lot beyond that, like what was in the show, who was the antagonist, those kind of things. The Simpsons. This is a tricky one for me. I'm going to have it as really great. Obviously, super iconic show. I love the characters and a lot of the episodes. They're classic. It's like the show Seinfeld, kind of where a lot of the side characters, even South Park, where you've got a lot of the side characters that are great. It was never my favorite show, though. Like, I never was like, I have to see The Simpsons, and if I miss The Simpsons, I'm going to be, freaking out. That said, I do remember some of the episodes being very iconic, and like there was one about Mr. Burns getting shot and like who did it, and I think it was Maggie, spoiler alert. So it was great, and I loved the Simpsons arcade games and other things, so it could move to my favorites, but I wouldn't put it necessarily above some of the others. All right, the Smurfs. Smurfs was probably enjoyable. Barely not awesome. Papa Smurf was great. Smurfette, great. Gargamel, Azrael, great. Great theme song. Could move up. Trying to remember more about like what happened episode to episode. I did enjoy it, but I can't remember too much about it. The Venture Brothers, I didn't watch enough of to really get a sense, but what I did watch was kind of funny, and so I'll have it in the watchable category. Thundercats. Thundercats is also in my potentially favorite, really great section. So we'll work through that later. But Thundercats was awesome. I loved Lion-O, kind of coming of age story. Mum-Ra, great villain. The lizards, the buzzards, the monkey, and all those folks, great villains. Um, it's another one where I don't know if I know how it ended. I need to find it so I can figure out what happened to Third Earth. But it was great. Okay, then they had a newer one. This newer one was great. It really was. I was skeptical and I was like, oh, I'm going to watch it. It actually got canceled like after a season. So you're like, oh, it can't be any good. But that wasn't the issue. The issue was something with like the director and all that crap. But this show was very thoughtful. It's almost like Samurai Jack a little bit in the way that it teaches lessons through just like the story. You're not like getting it preached at you, but you watch him grow or he learns from different people, different things. Lion-O does, and it was a very good show. Um, yeah, so I wish that one would have continued. I think it would have been very good. Tiny Toon Adventures was really great. This is another one where there was a movie that I get confused about what was in the movie, what was in the show. Sometimes, but the show itself was great. They had awesome characters. They did a great job with Buster and Babs and with Dizzy Devil and Hampton Plucky. I get the theme song in my head as I say that. So yeah, very fun show growing up. Avatar didn't get to see enough, but I'm going to put it in the barely not awesome. Similar to the story I was just telling about Thundercats, I think that's a lot of what Avatar is. He's learning to be himself and growing, and there's all these side characters and stuff. I never had the attention span to sit there and like really pay in depth attention to it. And by the time I started to, I didn't really understand what the show was about. So I was like, oh, I'll just kind of throw it on. But it demands more than that. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I meant to throw in the never heard of this one, I think, unless I moved the wrong one. So I was just going to take a quick look to see if I moved the wrong one. And if so, I'll just use this one. Okay, well, I'll just use this one. If I run to the other one, I'll move this one down. So Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, this is actually the original that I'm going to be referencing here, the 90s version, which was really great, up in my category of things that could be my favorites. My one downside to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I feel like it dipped in quality after the first or second season. Like, I remember much more about the beginning of it than I do the latter half. And maybe that's not fair and I need to go back and watch it, but I don't remember toward the end. Tom and Jerry Kids. Tom and Jerry Kids was fun. Like, I would have it in the watchable category. The theme song was great. Gets stuck in my head all the time. But I don't remember too much. I remember more than I think. Now that I think about it, I'm going to move it up to enjoyable because I did like some of the side stories and the side characters. So you had Spike and Tyke and Droopy and Dripple in the song. And I forgot that they were in it until that song got in my head. So the Tom and Jerry part, I was always like, yeah, okay. But I always liked Droopy and I always liked the side characters there. So I'll move that one up. Similarly, Tom and Jerry was more watchable for me. I never felt like I had to see Tom and Jerry. It was fun. It was fun to see the back and forth, but it wasn't my favorite. Thomas and Friends was kind of in that Blaze category. Like, I enjoyed, there was like a grumpy train that I enjoyed. I can't remember his name, but it's kind of a peaceful show for me and watching it with kids, so it was fine. Top Cat, never really got into Top Cat. I don't remember much about it, so I'm gonna put it down in the dull category. Probably missing something. I don't know that I remember much of it. Transformers, spoiler, earlier that's one of my favorites. Great characters, loved. I mean, obviously, it was trying to sell me toys and it did a good job. But you had Optimus Prime, you had Megatron, you had Soundwave, Starscream. It's crazy because today everybody's like, "Oh my gosh, Bumblebee!" Bumblebee was like a little side character on the show, and you're just like, "Okay, why did we pick the smallest, insignificant one that was actually a Volkswagen Beetle to be the face of Transformers now?" I don't know, but you give me Jazz or somebody like that. that's more fun, but whatever. Rescue Bots. Rescue Bots was cool. It's again in the kids category ish, that watchable stuff, and it was fun. I mean, they solve uh, problems and put up fires and things like that. It's a nice little use of Transformers for a kids show. Veggie Tales, similarly, and I'd probably have that toward the lower end. It's more of a little kiddie show, but it was catchy songs, at times, and those types of things. Woody Woodpecker, also kind of like Tom and Jerry. I did like Little Penguin Guy, and I do think I like the '90s one, or recognize the '90s one more than this, but the old one. But it's good. All right, X-Men. X-Men's one of my favorites. We'll figure out where it fits, but great show, awesome characters. Like I said, this is the first time that like a great Marvel show that I recall coming out was more adultish, like serious characters. Wolverine was great. Cyclops was great. Some of those shows, like they're great because there's certain characters you don't like that you can at least respect that they're well done, right? Like some people would say, "Oh my God, Cyclops gets on my nerves." It's like, well, that means he's good because that's his personality. Or Wolverine gets on my nerves, or Gambit. It's like they're well written. That's why you don't like them. It's not like they're just poorly done. Then you have the villains, which were awesome: Magneto, Apocalypse, and all that. So, great show. Dealt with a lot of real, stuff around prejudice and bias and all that stuff too. So they did a good job. X-Men Evolution was a more teenage take on it. I tried to watch it a little bit. It was not my favorite. It was okay. Put it in the watchable category. Yogi Bear, also kind of in my watchable category. That might be one if I went back and there were other characters in it that I might like more, but it was just the Hanna-Barbera stuff. I was kind of like, okay. Huckleberry Hound might be in this, which I liked. I was trying to think who else. It'd probably be Magilla Gorilla, those kind of. I think they were in Yogi, but maybe I'm wrong. All right. Young Justice is the last of the ones they had. Young Justice was a really great show, is a really great show, might still be on. Was skeptical of it, was like, oh my God, I don't want to see just young versions of the people that are out there. But this is a much more serious take on some of the like issues of being a superhero and all that. And it has some pretty heavy themes in it. So it's a good show for sure. Great show for sure. Invincible, also a really great show. Brutal, very adult, mature, a lot of violence, but again, similar to Young Justice in that way. It's a young superhero trying to come to terms with who he is, what he is, just being a kid plus being a superhero. So very cool. Okay, these are the ones that I added. I don't think there's a ton left, so hopefully we can get through these pretty quick. And then maybe I'll do one more video that's shorter where I try to rearrange stuff and go from there. All right, so Pink Panther is, I enjoyed that show, kind of like Tom and Jerry Kids. I probably blend the old and new one. The part that I really like in Pink Panther, one, I just like him walking to the theme and stuff, but two is Inspector Clouseau and like him bungling around in the in the show. The Bad Batch I'd have as enjoyable. This show started better than the last time I watched it, and maybe it's gotten better again. I think there's still new seasons. It's a continuation of Clone Wars. I think it's a group of clones that didn't have chips in their head or something, where they escaped the order to change and like they're trying to survive in that world, which is a pretty interesting take, I thought. And the characters are, you identify with the characters a little bit and root for them a bit, so it's just good. Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. I don't remember a lot of it, but it was kind of dull for me not to remember. I remember the girl a little bit, but I never really got into it. The movie was not great either, though memorable. Attack on Titan is probably a favorite. I haven't like rewatched it. Watched it once. Watched the last couple episodes in Japanese. I probably should watch the whole show in Japanese, but just a incredible show. Had no idea what it was and started watching it, and I was like, holy cow, this is the weirdest thing I've ever seen. And it was really, 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 really good. Battle of the Planets, I'd need to see more. I'd have that as watchable. It's probably like a show my brother would have liked a lot. He was 10 years older than me, so it's kind of that age of the 70s and stuff, where in the early 80s, where they were superheroes and flew around. I didn't get to see a ton of it. Brave Star, I never got into. 80s show, they get kind of repetitive. Would need to see more of it. Centurions, I liked more. I'd have that probably in my Barely Not Awesome, but I was geared toward the whole like, oh, we have different suits and we have different colors, and I'm air and I'm water and I'm land, and we all have different weapons and stuff. So it was a fun show in that regard. I thought it was pretty good from what I recall. Um, cops, cops, I would have, and sorry, I'm kind of going the wrong direction. Uh, Probably in the watchable, but I enjoyed Cops. I remember when it was on, I wouldn't necessarily seek it out, but it was, they had different, there was the metal guy, the cowboy guy, that kind of thing, where you had different types, and that was fun. All right, we've got some Dragon Ball here ones that I've got to get straight. So I think this is Dragon Ball GT. I never, now that I think about it, I never saw Dragon Ball GT. I would watch it. It's like not canon, I think, after Dragon Ball Z or something, which is why I never watched it. Um, who knows if it's any good? People who watched it obviously do. This is Dragon Ball Z. Dragon Ball Z is really great. It would be close to being one of my favorites as well. I think the problem is some of the episodes take too long. Like, and I get that that's what they're there. You let it breathe. The battle with Frieza felt like 500 episodes, and it probably could have been done in like five. Um, but the characters and stuff were fun. The last couple sagas in it or whatever probably weren't as entertaining as maybe some of the earlier ones. Defenders of the Earth, again, that's kind of like uh, a show that I just didn't see enough of, and probably would have been good. I'd have it like as in my watchable. I'd know the theme song more than I know the show. Dennis the Menace. Dennis the Menace was enjoyable. I liked the show. I liked Mr. Wilson. I liked Ruff. His parents were fun. Yeah, good parent characters. Dino Riders. Don't think that show really took off too much. Was more of a get kids to buy toys and that's all kind of show. A lot of them were, but don't remember too much about it now that I think about it. Dinosaurs, on the other hand, I enjoyed. Dinosaurs, I remember the Brontosaurus guy and the Triceratops. And there was always a villain, similar dinosaur but different on the other side. Uh, they were aliens, I think, so it was fun. All right, Dragon Ball Super was really great. Follow up to Dragon Ball Z. Um, Not quite as good to me, but it's essentially kind of the same show to me. Uh, Expanded scale and stakes as they always do. You're leveling up a million times, but the show's good. And surprisingly, Dragon Ball for me, I watched that more recently, was also really great. Different, much more, you know, street level kind of just martial arts fighting stuff, which I enjoyed, and like his journey of just being a kid and finding growing up and finding the Dragon Balls and stuff was a nice little adventure to go on. Drawn Together, I didn't see much of. Um, I couldn't really get into it, I don't think, so I'll just put it in the dull section. Some of these I didn't see. So this one, I don't know how you pronounce it. Evangelion, maybe Neon Genesis, I think is what it's called. I'd watch it. It's an anime. I never saw it, but it was on the list of popular animes. Flintstone Kids, I'd have as watchable. Uh, Again, taking the adults and moving them to kids, it was kind of fun to watch. Gamera, no one's ever heard of this one, but I actually watched this on Netflix, I think not all that long ago. He's a giant kaiju. He's the poor man's Godzilla. Watched all his movies. And the cartoon was like the weirdest thing I'd ever seen, where they had these very anime kitty style cartoon drawing of characters like the people, and then the monsters were horrifying looking. It was violent, and it was kind of jarring, but I enjoyed it. I thought it was not great, but it was definitely enjoyable. So I'll put it there. Okay, Godzilla. I didn't know this one existed. There was like one based on the '98 version, I think. So I'm like, oh. And then the other Godzilla, I still haven't watched. So I need to watch that too, in terms of shows I would watch. That's probably not great, but Godzuki, I think, is in the theme song. Harvey Birdman, Attorney at Law. This show's really great. It's hilarious. There's a lot of like sarcasm and humor and taking old characters and making like Fred. I think Fred Flintstone is a villain in it, like one of the court cases. He's the lawyer. Birdman is. Heathcliff. Heathcliff was enjoyable. I always liked the theme song. I liked the cats and the dude with the headband and the big dude. Can't remember their names, but it was an enjoyable show for me. Herculoids was watchable. I think it was more on one of the other Hanna-Barbera shows, and I can't remember what, but I like Gloop and Gleep, the little blob guys. I can't quite remember what they were doing and who they were fighting, but it was fun. Home movies. I have not seen this. I keep getting yelled at by Corey to watch it. I don't know what's in it, but I gotta sit down and watch it at some point. Hong Kong Phooey was in my watchable category. Fun theme song, fun character, little cat was with him. It was good. Inhumanoids, I never got to see enough of. This is one. The story with Inhumanoids was never knew when it was on TV. I think it was only one season long. It was a video, a VHS cassette at the movie store that I would try to rent. But every time I went, it was just the case and no video behind it. So either somebody had rented it and lost it, never brought it back. I don't know. So I never got to watch Inhumanoids. Finally watched it like on YouTube a little bit, enough to be able to rate it. It's a watchable show. Creepy villains, creepy monsters like from the underground or something, and the humans wear suits. Weird show, but entertaining. Similarly, Jason the Wheeled Warriors, never saw that until recently. They have Sawboss. My brother always said Sawboss to me, so I was like, what's that from? It's from Jason the Wheeled Warriors. And so that's another one where they like have vehicles and stuff that I'd need to see more of. Little Einsteins falls in the kiddie shows. Watch that with my niece and nephews. Like teaches you about music, teaches you about art. It's fine. Some people probably get annoyed as heck by watching that show, but I thought it was fine. Mega Man. I thought Mega Man was, I'll have it for now in the really barely not awesome category. It was a cool show. I got a little frustrated because it wasn't like I'm a bit of a completionist. Like I wanted to see all the robots and I wanted them to kind of be around and be in order and all this, but it was fine. Like he'd steal their powers and use them, and it was a fun show. So that one could move around a little bit, but I did enjoy it. Muppet Babies I thought was great. Loved the Muppets, and the music in this was awesome. And they'd always go on adventures, and they do like Star Wars, and they do Indiana Jones and stuff, and great, characters, Kermit and Fozzie, Miss Piggy, etc., Gonzo. So good. This is that, I don't know how to pronounce this. Is it Naruto or Naruto show? I probably need to watch that. I've heard it's good. It's an anime. Pac-Man. Pac-Man was just okay. It wasn't great. It's watchable, I guess. I remember a little bit of it. Pirates of the Dark Water. Stressful show. Never saw the end because the black water, the dark water was taking over the entire planet. And I'm like, how are they going to stop this thing? And so I never got to see like them collect all the treasures to stop it, but I need to catch that one. So that one's super enjoyable for me. Pokemon, I watched a little bit of. I would say it's watchable. Some people probably love it if you're into Pokemon, but I remember Pikachu and Ash and what's her name? Misty and Jigglypuff. Fine enough show. All right, we're running to the end here. Richie Rich, I couldn't really get into. It's kind of dull for me. This is Robotech. Robotech, I've watched a little bit of, but not enough, and I would have that as enjoyable. If I watched the whole thing, I'd probably think it's awesome. It's brought over from Japan. It's one of the first animes that they brought over, and it was like three animes put together, Macross and something else. First time I saw this was actually a VHS my brother gave me. That was part of the seasons or whatever. So hard to place the characters and stuff. I wasn't smart enough to watch it at the time, but it is great animation and great story. Similarly, Ronin Warriors was on Cartoon Network. They moved that anime over, and it was cool. They all had different suits, and the bad guys had suits. I have no idea what the heck the plot was, though. So I need to go back and rewatch that one. I did really like it, though, the parts that I saw. Sailor Moon, I didn't see a ton of. That was kind of on Cartoon Network around the same time, and you just again bleeded over. And it's like, oh, okay. There was like a dude. The guy was in a tuxedo, and the girls would transform, into Sailor Moon, the sailors, I guess. It was watchable. I mean, it's probably fine. It's more like a gym kind of show. All right, C-Lab 2021, I'd have as watchable. I'd probably need to watch that again, kind of more adult humor. I don't remember a ton of it. Space Ghost, similarly, it was just, it's kind of like Herculoids, and maybe that's where Herculoids came from, now that I think about it. Similar animation, Hanna-Barbera kind of thing. Speed Buggy, I didn't like that much. It's kind of annoying, but he was in Laugh Olympics and stuff too, but he'd like sputter when he talked, but wasn't my thing. Speed Racer, I'd have as watchable. Totally different animation, definitely an old show, great theme song, unique. So it's got that going for it, but it's kind of in that Johnny Quest phase for me. Spiral Zone, I have not watched enough of. I Googled the theme song for a theme song tournament we did, which was cool, but the show is really weird. When I first started watching, like I actually have to sit and watch this to see what's going on because I didn't watch enough of it. Street Fighter, I never got into. I loved the game, and I watched the cartoon, and I'm like, it's okay, but I didn't care to watch it. I don't remember why. I don't remember if the animation was bad or what, or if I just didn't care at the time. Maybe I should give it another shot. This is Tenchi Muyo. Tenchi Muyo was another kind of Sailor Moon type show on. It was watchable. It was just like, okay, it's this guy with all these girls around him. I don't even remember what the plot is really. I think they were from space. Teddy Ruxpin. Teddy Ruxpin was great theme song. I enjoyed the show as a kid. I had Teddy Ruxpin, so I'll have that. It is enjoyable. They go on like adventures with Grubby and all that. The Tick. The Tick is one of my favorites. Spoon. Just adult humor for taking a not serious take on a superhero. And great show. We'll have to figure out where he fits in, but yeah, one of my favorites for sure. Toxic Crusaders, I don't remember a ton about. I'd have it as watchable. I remember, I think, the toys more than I do the show. I'll have to think through that one, and I'll probably pause before I move these around to think through some of these to make sure I'm getting them right. Voltron. Voltron was one of my favorite-ish too, so it's kind of in this really great favorites section that we'll figure out. Kind of a predecessor to Power Rangers type stuff where you've got different, arms and legs that form the big guy that has to destroy the evil robots. But this show had awesome villains, and that also had like cool characters. The castle was cool. The lions were cool. You do always question, why are we fighting this thing as a bunch of lions instead of just turning into Voltron right away? But it was a great show. And this is also one where I need to go back and look and see how it finished because I don't remember if I even saw how it ended. All right, two more. We got Wacky Races, which I would say was enjoyable and kind of watchable. So like around that section. Different characters from different cars. Like they had vehicles. There was like a caveman car and like a creepy people car, and there was Penelope Pit Stop, and that's Muttley there, and Dastardly and Muttley. they had their own car, so they try to sabotage stuff. I always enjoyed it. And it was one of those you tune in, it's like, who's going to win this week? As if, it's not predetermined. And then the New Adventures of the Winnie the Pooh. I thought that was great. Loved Winnie the Pooh growing up. Loved the characters. It's a nice, like, peaceful show, but there's always some good heartfelt stuff in Winnie the Pooh. I'm probably combining this a little bit with the earlier Winnie the Pooh, which is fine. They're all the same characters. Which got Owl, Eeyore is one of my favorites for sure. So we got it there. All right, we'll stop there. I'm going to take some time to think about these and how I need to move them around. I probably won't focus too much on. I'll do this. I'll look at kind of who's on the fringe of a section, see if they need to move up or down. And then once they're there, move things around, at least in the awesome and supreme categories. So I get these two straight. And that'll probably be one more video and we'll be done. All right, we'll stop there.